I want to preface this by saying that I am cisgender, so my trans viewers out there, if I say anything that is problematic or inaccurate or just offensive, I'm so sorry in advance. Please, please, please call me on it, and I promise I will do everything in my power to make sure it never happens again. And that's probably how Piers Morgan should have opened his interview with Janet Mock. By now, you've all seen coverage of Janet Mock appearing on Piers Morgan's CNN show, Piers Morgan Live, and depending on how familiar you are with the marginalization that the trans community faces, you probably felt some feelings ranging from uncomfortable to outraged. Janet visited the show 2 nights in a row. It was supposed to be to talk about her new book, Redefining Realness, which if you have not picked it up yet, it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And Piers Morgan did a less than stellar job of interviewing her. Now, if you know anything about Janet, you know that she is this badass activist. She's a trans woman of color. She is so open and out there about her life. She is just amazing and brilliant and beautiful. She's just great. So this interview on a mainstream TV network had a lot of potential to get the word out there about some really important issues. But Piers Morgan didn't let that happen. Piers did and said a lot of inappropriate and generally icky things. He kept talking about how she used to be a man and she was a boy until she turned 18. He focused way too much on surgery and genitalia and other things that are just not even really ever appropriate in that conversation. Later on, Janet took to Twitter to talk about some of the things that Piers had said and done and how the story was packaged in a way that made her feel uncomfortable, and Piers totally blew up about it, started viciously tweeting back at all of her supporters about why they were victimizing him. He eventually invited her back to the show for a second night in a row to clear the matter up, and basically all he did was yell over her for a couple of minutes about why he felt so villainized and victimized and why the whole world was basically turning on him. What Piers didn't do was apologize, and that's really the most important thing he could have done in that moment. And if I understand his rationale correctly, it's because he didn't think he needed to, or he didn't understand why he needed to. He kept saying that he's a supporter of gay rights and transgender rights and gay marriage and things like that. Even while Janet was saying, well, supporting marriage equality is not the same thing as supporting trans people, he was like, no, 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 I'm one of your biggest allies, so really you should be apologizing to me. When it comes to being called out, you may have heard the analogy of if you step on somebody's toe, even though you didn't mean to, you still apologize because it still hurt them. This is kind of like that, except not really. This is like if you elbow somebody in the back of the head repeatedly, but you're turned in a different direction. So you didn't see it happening, and maybe you were distracted so you didn't feel it, but it still hurt them. But you didn't see it and you didn't feel it, so it must not have happened, so they're the one who's overreacting. Yeah, that's the analogy I'm gonna go with. Janet actually apologized to Piers, which she didn't need to do at all, so that shows you how phenomenal a person she is. She said that she was sorry that he felt victimized and villainized, and pointed out that other trans people who watched the interview probably felt that way too. In the days that have passed, she said that if she could do it again, she probably would have called Piers out on screen, but at the time she was trying to be a cordial guest and trying to use this opportunity on mainstream television to highlight the important issues she was there to talk about. And seeing the way Piers has reacted to the backlash, he probably wouldn't have taken it that well anyway. He might have just puffed up his chest and started mansplaining about why she was wrong and he was right. So again, speaking as a cis queer person who has tried to learn as much as I can from trans people out in the community, here are some things I have learned about how to be an ally. Listen to the people you are standing up for. Really listen. Do your research. If your guest has recently written a book about her life as a trans woman, maybe read it before you talk to her on air. It will probably answer some of your questions. Be respectful, read body language, read facial expressions. You're interacting with another human. If the things you're saying are clearly making them uncomfortable, then maybe take a step back and check yourself. Do not talk over the marginalized groups that you're trying to support. You're allowed to have a voice in this, you are, but it should never be the loudest one in the room, and sometimes it shouldn't even be there at all. There are times when it's just not appropriate for you to contribute, so that's when you sit back and watch what's happening and learn from the dialogue. At the same time, don't expect a trans person to bend over backwards to teach you how not to be a jerk. It's not their job to educate you. There are better uses of their time and resources, and there's a lot of this stuff that you can learn on your own. Have you heard of the internet? It's pretty cool. When you get called out, apologize. Don't get defensive. Don't act like you're the victim. It doesn't matter if you don't understand right away what you did wrong. Listen, learn, apologize for it, and then promise not to do it again, and then keep that promise. When I started blogging a couple of years ago, I was pretty ignorant about trans issues. There were a couple of times when I said that a trans person had been born a boy or born a girl because I didn't know that that was problematic, and then thankfully you guys called me out on it, and we had a healthy discussion, and I learned a lot, and now I don't do it anymore. I'm still learning every day, and yeah, it does suck to learn that you're offending somebody when you actually have the best intentions and you want to help. There's some cognitive dissonance there where you support a group and you want that support to show, but your actions inadvertently show something else. That's part of acknowledging your privilege, and what that means is realizing internally that as a cisgender person, or as a white person, or as a straight person, or as a male, that you are never going to experience some of the hardships that a trans person or a person of color or a queer person or a woman is probably going to face in their lifetime. Sometimes it's even appropriate to say that out loud. It's okay to feel uncomfortable in your privilege sometimes. If you want to be a good ally, then you take that privilege and you use it to advocate for these marginalized groups on platforms that you have access to that they don't. If you don't want to be an ally, then go ahead, make up words like cisphobia. Pierce, your jackass is showing. Queer people watching this, trans people especially, I want you to think about the best allies you have in your life and what they do to demonstrate that allyship on a daily basis. And I would love for you to leave those things in the comments. I really think this can be a teachable moment for those of us who are genuinely interested in learning how to be better allies to trans people and other marginalized groups, even if Piers does not want to be part of that conversation. You know what? That's his loss. Let's all get better for it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.